In this video, we will cover the configuration of concrete mixes, their specifications, as well as concrete set templates in QP6. The reference group in the Office menu item in the top navigation bar has a link to the Lists page. This page allows users to maintain list items in the QEST web app. Under the Concrete Samples group on this page, there are a number of lists that relate to the new concrete sample in the QEST web app. Concrete mixes is the first that we will look at today, and concrete specimen set templates is the other. To be clear, these mix and set template lists that apply to the new concrete sample type are completely separate to the existing concrete mix and test group lists in QEST Lab today. Entering the concrete mixes list will show us all the mixes we have defined globally and in the current laboratory. Mixes, like any list, can be global or local, but they tend to make most sense as local entries. Adding a new concrete mix list entry will first ask for a supplier for the mix. Mixes can be linked to a specific supplier or be made available for any supplier. If you do select the Any Supplier option, the supplier will not be automatically selected when the mix is selected. It will need to be manually filled in. But if a specific supplier is selected here, then selecting the mix on a concrete sample will automatically select the supplier. We then enter a mix code or mix identifier. This is what will appear on the report to identify the mix. And then a longer description can also be entered for reference. This longer description does not show on the report by default, but can be configured to do so. Adding the mix after populating these key values will take us to the actual mix list to continue the setup process. Here, we can select an aggregate size and then a specification to use with the mix so that appropriate limits are applied to data entered on the sample and worksheets. If we do not have an appropriate specification to use with our mix, we can create a new one. I'm going to create a new specification which opens the selected specification group in a new browser window. I'm going to click the Add Specification button, make sure it is for the new concrete sample, and give it the name of 5000 psi mix. After electing to add the specification with those properties, I can add individual tests to that specification that I wish to set limits on. So we'll start with our C39 compressive strength test for the individual specimen. This is the individual lab test, and we want to add a limit for the compressive strength to be greater than or equal to 5000 psi. This should also have a set of fields to define an acceptance age for this limit to apply at, say, 28 days or later. That is an oversight that can be overcome with configuration but will also be addressed in an upcoming QP6 maintenance release. I can also set a limit on the set level compressive strength test, which calculates the mean strength at a given age. And I want to also set that limit to be greater than or equal to 5000 psi. And in this case, the acceptance age fields are there, so I will set this limit to only apply at 28 days or later. Again, these acceptance age columns should be up here as well, and they will be in a future maintenance release of QP6. Now, we can leave it at that and just have our compressive strength limits applied, but we can also add field test result limits here that apply to the mix if we want to. So, we can say that our slump should be, for example, between 3 and 5 inches. Alternatively, a lot of these limits that apply to concrete can also be deferred. Marking a specification limit as deferred means that it is expected that the technician will fill the limit value out on site. Effectively, we know that we will want a limit here, but we don't know what it will be ahead of time. So if I defer this air content limit, for example, when the technician uses it during field testing, they will be prompted to enter the limit at that point. So I can say, well, I'll have a 5000 psi limit for my strength, but the limits for these field results will be entered on the day of testing. Or if you know them ahead of time, you can enter them on the specification or have some combination of these settings. I will just leave the specification configured like this. I'll have my slump pre-configured to 3 and 5. My air content limit can be entered at time of testing. So now that I've got my 5000 psi mix specification, I can just refresh the page here and select it. We can also optionally record design data for the mix in terms of its constituents and amounts of those to use. This information can be captured by checking the Record Design Data checkbox and entering the data about the constituents in the constituents grid. I've now got the 5000 psi curb mix available for selection and use in QEST field. I can create more mixes here if I wish to from the mixes list, or I can move on to field testing. The next thing we'll look at in this video, however, is specimen set templates in QP6. Specimen set templates in QP6 are similarly available under the Office menu and in the List page under the Reference subsection. Looking in the Concrete Samples group, we have the Concrete Specimen Set Templates list available. Just like other lists, these entries can be local or global. The list in this environment has a number of templates already configured, but let's create a new one under the Global Laboratory so that it'll be available to everybody. In this case, we'll be making a specimen set template for 6x12 cylinders. It's good practice to make the name descriptive in terms of what specimens are included in the group so that it is easy to tell them apart at a glance. That said, the drop-down for creating a specimen set on a sample is a lot more informative in QP6 than it was in previous versions when listing the available templates. As a result, this type of naming convention is not strictly necessary, but it is a good habit to get into regardless. After giving our new template a name, the next thing we want to provide is the specimen type. In this case, we'll be creating cylindrical specimens. And then we need to provide information on which worksheets our specimen set template works with or applies to. For example, the sampling worksheet will be different for fresh concrete versus for cores. We are making a set template for fresh concrete testing, so we select the appropriate sampling method and the appropriate making and curing method. We then decide which laboratory tests we would like to apply to the specimens when this template is used. In this case, we only have the one lab test we're interested in, which is the compressive strength to C39. In scenarios where more than one laboratory test is required, more tests can be added in the template. Next, we define the nominal size of our specimens. The available nominal sizes depend on the specimen type, and we want 6x12s. Finally, we can add the definition of our specimens. For this template, we want 2 7 days, 2 28 days, and 2 holds. In QP6, hold specimens can have a target age. This can be used to indicate when they might be disposed of, but its use is entirely optional. Specimens can also be marked as field cured, can be optionally reported, and, if an age in hours is required, then checking this box, up here, will allow you to define those early ages as well. The time unit dropdown is not shown in the default case for the sake of simplicity. Now that this specimen set template exists, it is available for use in concrete samples. If we navigate to a concrete sample, we can see this in action. I already have a set on this one, but can add a second set to it. Usually you don't want to do that unless you're creating a mix of cylinders and beams from the exact same sample or something like that. But just for the sake of demonstration, there's our new set template. And again, that extra information shows what kind of specimen we have, what the nominal size is, and then what the ages of those specimens are, as well as what lab tests it will add. Using the two processes shown in this video will allow you to configure all of the necessary reference data for concrete testing in QP6.